When I was 16, I had a vision. I wanted the kind of life that you'd only ever see in movies, the glamour, the freedom, the energy of living in New York City. I pictured myself working in marketing, maybe even stepping into New York Fashion Week and traveling across the coast for work, but most of all, to wake up every single day just happy to be alive. That was the dream. And now, sitting here in my 20s, I can honestly say that I made that 16-year-old version of me so proud. I've been working for years, building the life I once imagined, and last month, for the first time, I let myself pause long enough to really enjoy it. It was time to ask myself, what does building my dream life really mean? I spent the last 30 days working in silo. Today, I'm going to be sharing exactly what I did and what I learned from this experience. For those that are new, my name is Macy. I'm 23 years old. I live alone in New York City, and I am on a journey to build my dream life. So for the month of August, I spent my time taking an intentional disconnect from social media, like specifically YouTube, since there's a lot of pre and post-production efforts that go into making a video. So instead of doing my usual grind of meal prep, 5 a.m. morning routine, like the full shebang, workouts, all of that, I was doing a lot of these things, but really I wanted the theme of August to center around taking, again, that intentional disconnect, but also focusing on doing some self-reflection and introspection around, what I want my life to look like. The premise of my channel is about building my dream life. So what does my dream life really entail? What message do I want to be sharing? And just in general, like, how do I feel about the full process? Personally, I think internal work can be like a very vague term. Like, what does doing the work actually entail? So I'm going to actually break it down. I have it written out here in terms of like the questions that I ask myself to kind of like reflect on. For me, I'm asking myself, what does the next chapter of my life look like? I'm a 5-year plan type of gal. I'm very type A. So having a 5-year plan is something that's very important to me. As I'm 23 now, the next 5 years of my life is going to look very different than any of the other past 5-year plans that I've ever had. I think the other component about this too, and like why I'm really thinking about it a lot, is I graduated college when I was like 19. I started when I was like 15, 16, and I have always been a bit like insecure about my age, like being younger, and I'm very used to being like the youngest person in the room. This is something that is a bit more specific to myself and my own experiences, but I feel like for where I'm at in my career and like what I am, interested in, it's not exactly like very relatable to like the average 23-year-old. And then at the same time, a lot of my friends that are, even from 5, 10, 15 years older than me, like it's also like a very different life stage. My peers that are older are going to be getting married, having kids, settling down. It is just different. So it's not like necessarily a bad thing. It's just another layer and factor that's part of my experience and kind of what goes into, some of the reflection on my end. But the idea of like, okay, what does my timeline look like for marriage, settling down, having a family, all of that, my career, these are things that kind of go into consideration. And for myself personally, like I don't love the idea of like settling down. Like I hate the idea of settling, period. So for me, like when I think about building my dream life, I also want to be intentional about like how do I set myself up for success in the future and, make sure that the reality that I want is not one of actually settling for anything, because I would not like that. I've been thinking about, when do I want to get married? Career-wise, like what am I most passionate about and how can I take some more actionable steps? So like for myself, career-wise, like I know I want to start my own business someday, but there are a lot of other factors that, go into that, right? Like I can't just like up and leave my job and just, go start a business. There's like a level of risk tolerance that I have to be willing to accommodate. And like, that's kind of a really big transition if I'm to just like, alrighty, like go all in, bet on myself type of thing. So something that I've been, really reflecting on is like, what is holding me back? How do I hold myself more accountable? I think this level of risk, like it's 100% betting on myself. So, why do I feel like hesitation around that? And how can I change that? How do I trust myself a bit more? How do I I don't know. I want to make more progress in that department. I think like, a lot of what I've been talking about on my channel has been very focused around like mindset, wellness, and like more of the supporting habits, I would say, versus like that of an entrepreneur, which is, truth be told, what I would like to be eventually. And I haven't really talked about that on here, and I think that's something that I would like to talk about more on my channel going forward. I've just been scared. So that's going to be something that I would like to integrate a bit more into like topics that I want to discuss later on. But in terms of accountability, like maybe YouTube is my means of holding myself accountable. We shall see. But yeah, that's what I'm asking myself. And then social life, like, how do I be a bit more intentional with my friendships and close relationships? The beauty of being young in your early 20s is that like everybody that you know from college or from wherever like is typically close by. There is that degree of proximity that I think is often taken for granted. And that's something that I have just become more aware about and want to be more mindful of, recognizing like, hey, this period of life is not going to last forever, of course. How can I create more opportunities to make memories with people and like just enjoy that while I have access to my peers and whatnot before everybody moves away for either career or family. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about living in New York City. Even when you're in your 30s too, like a lot of your friends are nearby, especially if you went to a college nearby, like everybody kind of ends up in New York City. On the West Coast, it's a little differently. So, you know, some give and take, but for myself at least, like that's something that I really want to like cherish a bit more and find opportunities and ways to be more intentional about fostering those relationships. Connection in general is really important to foster, like having human connection with others, whether that's volunteering or finding some sense of community, is very, very key. So now let's talk about what did I actually learn from all that. So one, I think fulfillment is something that I would say we all aim to seek. I certainly do. I want everything that I am working towards to have some sort of payoff, right? Otherwise I wouldn't be doing it. There's a fine line between arrival fallacy, where you're constantly wanting more, you're never satisfied. It's like, ooh, I will be happy when I achieve this. Like, that's not how I want to run my life, like at all. I want to be very intentional about that. So gratitude is more on the flip side, where you are recognizing the blessings that you have in front of you and taking that into account and actively making it known that you're happy and appreciative of all the wonderful things that you get to experience, do, etc. So the other component is the concept of the dream life. I want to say is, on paper, it's pretty unrealistic and it's very abstract. I want to make it known that I recognize that there are going to be a lot of highs and lows in terms of just life in general. Like, you cannot be on a high forever. That's not going to happen. And it would be very unrealistic of me to like promote a lifestyle that does not accommodate for the lows. Because trust me, I get a lot of lows. I have bad days. Everybody has bad days. I want to make sure that I'm crafting a sustainable lifestyle that I can take into the next chapter of life. And so like that is really important, that that lifestyle accommodates for bad days too. I think that's going to be about like having a routine that you can fall back on whenever you're in times of like stress or discomfort, or whenever you fall off track. I think it's really helpful to have like a consistent routine that you can always rely on whenever you are like in need of assistance to get back on track, is what I'm saying. And I think I have this pretty down. Like, I mean, if you watch any of my other videos, you're hearing me talk about the same things. It's like waking up really early, the cold showers, meal prepping, the daily workout routine, like all these different things that, you know, are important. But I think it goes beyond just that. Like, I think self-discipline is a bucket, and like that's just one piece of the puzzle. You know, the self-discipline practice, the self-gratitude practice. I believe that there has to be some sort of affirmation of sorts, like whether that's through conversations, verbally, like a verbal confirmation of I am grateful for X, Y, and Z. For me, this might be even what I'm saying right now in this video, or it could be like the conversations that I'm having with friends. Putting yourself in an environment where you're setting yourself up to be more grateful is key, having that gratitude practice. And then personally, I was confirmed in the Catholic Church this year, so faith and religion is very important to me. And I think like prayer is another really great way of, you know, expressing gratitude. I think that's part of the reason why I felt drawn to even involving myself in the church in the first place, is like having a dedicated time to embody that is really, really awesome. So yeah, spending more time in prayer. And then the last part, I think finding ways to give yourself some hope. If you're in a low point, like that is so important. So like doing activities that make you feel something. Like for me, that's going to be goal setting, because it's like giving me the opportunity to improve, to, change my reality, which I always love if I'm in a low point. So yeah, to recap this fallback routine, it comes in 3 parts: activities that exercise self-discipline, activities that practice gratitude, and then lastly, activities that bring you hope and make you feel something. I think you need all 3 facets. Activities that bring you hope, bring you motivation, spark the dopamine, get you to feel like you want to make change. Self-discipline is, in a way, confirming that you are able and capable of trusting yourself. I really do believe that self-discipline is like a muscle. If you don't use it, you will definitely lose it, and it's gonna be a lot harder to like be consistent if you aren't consistently exercising. That's why I always fall back on my like 5 a.m. morning routines. Like, even though it's crazy, like I will wake up at 5 a.m. whenever I know that like, okay, things gotta change. Like, let me keep practicing this. I know it's gonna be hard, but it's a great way to reset and practice that muscle over time. I think it helps a ton. And then lastly, again, the gratitude component, great way to induce serotonin. You have that balance between the dopamine and the serotonin invoking activities. I think that's really important to have that balance and kind of like be intentional about crafting that. Hopefully that made sense. Hopefully that like was articulate enough, makes sense in my brain, but this is what I've kind of been thinking about in the last 30 days. And these again are my key takeaways from a lot of the reflection and journaling that I've been doing in the last month. All that to say, I am very grateful. I am so happy to be here, and I'm excited to continue to share more about this journey. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed.